This happened back when I was in high school, maybe a junior. I'm in my late 20s now, but this night is one of those memories that's just burned in there. My parents had bought this house out in the middle of nowhere a couple of years prior. It was one of those old farmhouses with a wraparound porch and a big red barn, surrounded on three sides by cornfields. It was their dream, I guess. For me, it was just isolating. This was especially true on Halloween night. My parents were at some costume party in town, which meant I was tasked with handing out candy. It was a joke, really. We lived so far off the main road that we'd be lucky to get 5 trick-or-treaters the whole night. So I was just posted up on the couch, watching some horror movie marathon, not really paying attention. My dad had put up this scarecrow in the yard earlier that week. It was his big project. He'd used an old pair of his overalls and one of my mom's flannel shirts, stuffed it with straw, and topped it with this creepy burlap sack for a head with jagged painted-on eyes and a crooked smile. It stood on a wooden cross out near the edge of the driveway, maybe 50 yards from the house. I remember looking at it when the sun was going down and thinking it looked kind of cliché, but whatever. It was probably around 8 p.m. when I got up to grab a drink from the kitchen. The kitchen window looked right out over the front yard, and for whatever reason, I glanced out at the scarecrow. It looked a little different. Closer, maybe? I didn't know why I thought that. I figured it was just the darkness playing tricks on my eyes, or maybe the way the porch light was hitting it. It didn't make any sense. I shook my head, grabbed my soda, and went back to the living room, trying to get back into the movie. About an hour later, our old golden retriever, Buddy, who had been asleep at my feet, suddenly shot up. He went to the big picture window in the living room and let out this low, quiet growl, the kind he only did when a deer or something was in the yard. I told him to be quiet and got up to look. My heart damn near stopped. The scarecrow wasn't by the driveway anymore. It was standing in the middle of the front lawn. It had to be a good 20 yards closer than it was before. Okay, I was officially freaked out now. My first thought was that it was a prank. It had to be. Maybe some of my friends from school had driven out to mess with me. I grabbed my phone to text them, but I had no service. That wasn't unusual. The signal was always spotty out there, but it didn't help my nerves. I locked the front door and went around the house checking all the windows, making sure they were locked too. I kept telling myself it was just a stupid prank. But looking back, it's really hard for me to explain the feeling I had. It wasn't just fear. It was this deep, primal dread. I decided to just ignore it. I turned the TV up louder and tried to focus on the movie, but I couldn't. Every little creak of the old house made me jump. Buddy wouldn't settle down either. He was just pacing back and forth in front of the window, whining. After another 20 minutes, I couldn't take it anymore. I had to look. I crept over to the window and peeked through the blinds, and the scarecrow was gone. It wasn't on the lawn. It wasn't by the driveway. It was just gone. A wave of relief washed over me for a split second, thinking maybe my friends had gotten bored and left. But then I heard it, a slow, dragging sound on the wooden planks of the front porch, like something heavy and full of straw being pulled across the floorboards. Buddy started barking like crazy, a real frantic, terrified bark. And that's when it clicked. This wasn't a prank. It wasn't my friends. Whatever was out there was right outside the door. I grabbed the heavy iron fireplace poker next to the hearth and backed away from the door, pulling my phone out and trying to dial 911 again. No signal. I ran upstairs, with Buddy right at my heels. I could hear scraping now, right on the front door. Long, deep scratches, like fingernails on wood, except there was no way fingernails could make that sound. I locked myself in my parents' bedroom and shoved a dresser in front of the door. I was shaking so hard I could barely hold the phone. I stood on my parents' bed, holding the phone up to the window, desperately trying to get a bar of service. That's when I saw the face in the window. The burlap sack, the jagged painted eyes, right there on the other side of the glass. On the second floor. It tilted its head, that horrible, stitched-on smile seeming to widen. I screamed. I don't think I've ever screamed like that before or since. I fell off the bed and scrambled into the attached bathroom, slamming and locking the door behind me. I was crying, hyperventilating, trying to tell the 911 operator what was happening because a single bar of service had finally appeared. The police got there in what felt like an eternity, but was probably only 15 minutes. They found the front door covered in deep gouges, and my dad's extension ladder, which he kept in the unlocked barn, was leaned up against the side of the house, right below my parents' bedroom window. On the porch, they found muddy footprints and bits of straw everywhere. But the scarecrow itself was gone. They searched the property and the cornfields, but found nothing. My parents came home and tried to calm me down, but I know they thought I was exaggerating, or that it was just some elaborate prank that went too far. It's safe to say I didn't sleep in that house for a week. To this day, my dad thinks it was some kids from town trying to scare me. But I know what I saw. I saw that thing move. I saw its face in my window. We moved out of that house a year later, and I can't lie, I was relieved. I never found out who or what was wearing that costume, or why they decided to terrorize me that night. And honestly, I don't think I want to know. This was Halloween night, 2016. I was in college at the time, and my parents had tasked me with handing out candies to all the kids. My mom, as usual, had bought about 1 million bags of candy that I knew we'd have left over for weeks. I was trying to lose a little weight, so I knew I'd be the one regrettably munching on them for days to come. I always told her she went way overboard. Our house was in a cul-de-sac on a dead-end street, so we hardly got any trick-or-treaters. We did, however, have some loyal neighborhood kids who'd always come by, knowing just how much candy we'd give out. Halloween was on a Monday this year. I conveniently had Mondays off that semester, so I spent the first half of the day at the gym and then working on some assignments for class. It was always around 4 p.m. that the sound of kids outside would indicate that trick-or-treating had started. The first doorbell ring was, I guess, somewhere between 4 and 5 p.m. The day went pretty much as you'd expect. There's nothing too interesting about handing out candy to little kids while my dog, Vado, barks like crazy every time the doorbell rings. I'd say from that first kid up until about 8 p.m., there were maybe 10 to 15 groups total. Like I said, that cul-de-sac was out of the way. It being a Monday night, things quieted down much earlier than usual. By 8:30, I figured I was done for the night. I put a good dent in my projects, so I had some of my mom's leftover stew and went to my room to watch Game of Thrones. I was literally 2 episodes in when I heard the unexpected sound of the doorbell. Vito started barking again. I looked at the clock, and it had to be like 9:30. This was definitely beyond the cutoff time for trick-or-treaters. I went downstairs to the front door and opened it. On the other side of the glass storm door was a very tall man in a clown costume with a very scary-looking mask. I knew it was a man just based off the frame of the person. He was alone. He gave me a little wave, then pointed at the brown sack he was holding. It looked basically empty. I didn't open the storm door. I just said through the glass, "Sorry, we don't have any more candy," and slammed the main door shut. I locked it right away. I instantly regretted even opening the door. I genuinely thought it was just some kid running late, or an unfortunate father who worked late and was trying to get some last-minute trick-or-treating in with his kid. Whoever I just saw on our stoop was not a kid. Hell, it didn't even look like a teenager. The frame of this person was massive, and the clown costume just made him look even bigger. Thankfully, I hadn't grabbed the candy bowl before opening the door, so he couldn't see that I was lying. I hovered by the door for a bit, just to listen and see if I'd hear footsteps walking away. But not only did I not hear him walk away, he rang the doorbell again. Vito, once again, started going ballistic. Vito is a rat terrier. His bark is not intimidating in the slightest. I picked him up and carried him upstairs after turning off all the lights downstairs. This was my half-assed attempt at getting the guy to think no one was home, that I was absolutely never opening that door again. I put Vito in my room and shut the door so he wouldn't keep barking. I stood at the top of the stairs listening. Then I heard it. through the front door, the storm door being forced open. There was a loud snap, implying the latch had been broken from the force. I then heard both knocks on the front door and the doorknob jiggling. At this point, I decided to hide in my room. I was incredibly unsettled. I texted my family group chat about what was going on. No one answered, of course. I tried to tell myself it was a prank. I would have texted all my guy friends asking who it was, but all my guy friends are short. I resumed the episode I was watching, truly just trying to pretend he wasn't there. What else was I supposed to do? The doorbell rang once again, though. This was a nightmare. I kept telling Vito to shush. I had my blinds closed, too. I didn't want that clown knowing what room I was in. I tried calling my dad, but he didn't pick up. I called my brother, who picked up saying he wasn't alone, which I knew meant he was with a girl. I told him, "Check my texts. There's some guy dressed as a clown at the door, and he won't go away." My brother said it's a Halloween prank and to just ignore it. He seemed like he was in a hurry to get off the phone, so I hung up. I hoped he was right. It honestly made the most sense. So, after a few more minutes of sitting on the edge of my bed, anxious, the doorbell did not ring again. I finally felt safe enough to relax and lay back down. I started drifting away slowly, so I turned off the TV to allow complete silence in the room, and very shortly after that, I fell asleep. I don't even think I was asleep long enough to have a dream when I woke up to Vito growling, that quiet little bark he does when he's waiting for approval. I told him to be quiet and he stopped. I looked to see what he was looking at. He was looking at the window. I listened. There was a sound coming from right outside the window, the slightest thumping sound, and I could almost swear I heard something rubbing against the glass. My bedroom was on the second floor of the house. It's not like anyone could be outside my window, but I wondered what it was. I got up and pushed open the blind on my window, and boy, was I wrong. That man dressed as a clown was at my window. All I could see was that horrific mask on the other side of the glass. He tilted his head as he looked at me. I started screaming my lungs out. I don't even remember if Vito barked. I think I just blocked everything else out. I ran with my phone out of my room and into my parents' bedroom, where I locked the door and dialed 911. I was too shook to even cry. My whole body was shaking, and my voice was trembling as I spoke to the 911 operator. I must have asked her once every 20 seconds to get the police to hurry up. She'd tell me the same thing every time. They're coming as fast as they can. The police got to the house in roughly 10 minutes. They examined the exterior of the house to look for any attempted entry points. All they found was that the latch on the front storm door was broken, like I figured. And leaned against the side of the house, by my bedroom window, was my dad's ladder. That man went into our storage shed outside and found my dad's ladder to climb up to my window. I ended up going to sleep at a friend's house that night. To this day, I don't know if this was just a sick prank, or if there was about to be a horrible crime committed with the sick novelty of it being Halloween. It was late October, a Saturday during Halloween weekend. I think Halloween was on a Tuesday this year, so the big party night was the Saturday before. My friends and I were still looking for last-minute plans since everything was sold out. Ideally, we wanted to find a house party. We all had pretty funny costumes too, and we wanted to get good use out of them. My friend Kate actually decided to put on her Instagram and Snapchat stories looking for parties tonight. Not something I would have ever done. I'd find that to be kind of shameless and embarrassing, but I was glad she was willing to do it. I was surprised when she texted in the group chat that someone had hit her up about a party pretty soon after. She sent a screenshot of the details. It had an address, a start time, and a few ground rules, such as the party would only be indoors, no backyard access, and bring your own booze. It also said, must bring at least one girl for every guy. The guy who sent the details to Kate was one of our guy friends around our age who mutually knew a lot of the same people we did. Apparently, a number of people we knew were going to this party. The house address was one town over, super close. So between the four of us, we all went to Shauna's house since she had the open crib. We pre-gamed there for about an hour as we all finished up getting ready. We waited till our guy friends confirmed they were going. Then we decided to head over. We called an Uber. We all had our own drinks, varying from Four Locos to White Claws to vodka shooters. The Uber driver was probably sick of us by the end of the drive. When we got to the house, we saw a bunch of cars everywhere. The house was pretty big, very spacious front yard. We were four girls walking in, so surely whoever was throwing this party was going to love us. We didn't hear any music until we got closer to the door. Then we heard the beating of the bass. I opened the door, and the first room we were in was a cross between the living room and the kitchen. The entire house was very dimly lit, only by a bunch of orange lights hung up, definitely creating a Halloween party ambiance. The place was decently crowded, but honestly, we didn't know anyone. Kate texted the guys we knew to see if they were here yet. In the meantime, some older guy came and greeted us. He asked our names, and he said he's John, Luke's dad. Apparently, Luke was the guy throwing this party. I asked who Luke is, where he goes to school, and he replied, "Oh, he's around here somewhere. You can ask him when you see him." Then he asked us if we wanted to put our drinks in the cooler. He led us into the kitchen, where there were 3 big coolers of ice. Each one already had a bunch of drinks in it, so we put some of our cans in. The John guy seemed like he was 50-something years old, which would make sense if his son was the one throwing the party. But at the same time, it seemed slightly weird he'd be so welcoming and involved in such a big party in his own house. He was going around talking to everybody. Well, it seemed mostly the girls. He seemed like he could have also been drunk. The 4 of us played beer pong at one of the tables where some guys started talking to us, so we started playing them. Kate then said our guy friends were on the way, which I was happy to hear. John suddenly yelled my and Kate's names over by the counter in the kitchen. He was yelling, "Shots!" My other 2 friends, Shauna and Tracy, looked slightly offended, so I said, "Can we all have one?" And he yelled, "Yeah, sure." So we went over to the kitchen counter by him and all took a shot of tequila. I gagged because there was no lime. I was definitely starting to get drunk after this. It was odd how much the dad of the house was trying to hype this party up. He had this oddly welcoming yet unsettling presence. The unsettling part was because he was much older than the generally college-aged people here, and he was pushing drinks on people. Then he asked what our poison is. I wasn't going to say anything until the girls all gave their favorite drinks. John started making a bunch of mixed drinks. In the meantime, we went back to the beer pong table where the guys we were playing were still waiting. I plugged my phone into an outlet just because I was down to like 50%. Then I went back to the game. Mid-game, John came over with 2 drinks for Kate and I, and then he came back with 2 more for Shauna and Tracy. They were all in red Solo cups. He made me a vodka soda. I sipped on it during our beer pong game whenever I had a chance. I was drinking it slow because I was already drunk. After we lost to the random guys, I went to get my phone, only to realize it didn't charge at all. It was still at the same percent. The outlet wasn't working. I didn't feel comfortable leaving my phone on any other outlets, so I just refrained from killing the battery any further. Our guy friends eventually showed up, and it was soon after this point that things quickly became a blur. I mean, very quickly. Like 1 second I remember talking with our friend Jeff. The next, blacked out. The next thing I remember was my friends waking me up in the car outside my house. I felt woozy. My vision was blurred. My head was spinning. We were in one of our guy friends' cars. One of the guys walked me to my front door and helped me inside. Then they all left. I was alone, except for my parents asleep in their room. I felt I must have drank way too much, but I also had this woozy, weird feeling in my head that I'd never felt from drinking. I felt dizzy. I went straight to my room to bed. I checked my phone, and I had some text from a random unsaved number. I opened it, and there were a bunch of texts already. It started with me texting my name, and then they responded, "John? Uh-oh." After that, he said, "You look so cute." Based on the time he sent this, it was still during the party. There was a 2-hour gap from then until he texted me again saying, "Where did my favorite girls go?" I was shocked at myself that I gave that man my number. I must have been drunker than I thought. But regardless, I lowered my head onto the pillow and fell asleep instantly. The next morning, I woke up to some disturbing texts. As my head was spinning, I read these sickening messages. After I fell asleep, I got texts from John that said, "Where are you? I'm coming to your house. You left something here," followed by, "I'm here. Can you come to the door?" followed by, "Hello? Are you awake?" He also tried calling me 3 times. This was all at like 2 a.m. I sent the screenshot to my friends, and this was when they reminded me of what happened. John was all over me as I was increasingly becoming a zombie. My friends started getting concerned, so they pulled me away and we left the party. And just as we were leaving, 2 police cars showed up outside, presumably for a noise complaint. And as we left, everyone took note of there being no furniture in the house. It was just a big empty space filled with people and beer pong tables. One of my guy friends looked up the number somehow, and he told me it was a voice over IP number, which I didn't understand. So he just said it was a fake phone number that John texted me from. He also said that with my number, he could easily find my address. I felt even more sick now. I asked if anyone ever met his alleged son, and everyone said no. We were starting to think there was no son. And when Shauna suggested he might have roofied me, it made so much sense. I'd never before felt the way I was feeling. We decided to take this to the police. We all went to the nearest police station and reported everything, including the texts. The cop at the front desk asked if this was in relation to the house party in the vacant house last night. We were at first confused by him saying, "vacant house," until he explained that there was a call from neighbors about a party going on in a house that had been vacant for some time. We all looked at each other with our mouths gaping. We were all brought into an office to sit down with, I guess, a detective, to take down the whole story. He took the fake phone number and said they'll try to trace this back to somebody once they get a warrant. We gave the police everything we could and we went on our way. I blocked the fake number. I honestly felt sick over this for a while. As the days went on and nothing happened, I was confident it was over. But none of us ever heard from the police. We never heard of any arrests being made or anything. To think that man went out of his way to advertise a house party in a vacant house to have access to young women, roofied me and possibly other girls, lied about having a son. All of this. This was clearly a very, very dangerous man. And the fact that we still haven't been called in to identify anybody scares me to think he's still roaming free. This was a month ago. I'll update if things change, and I'm crossing my fingers that they do.